A report released by Republicans Tuesday highlights more text messages between FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. President Trump addressed the release on Twitter saying, quote, "New FBI texts are bombshells." The two FBI agents have been accused of political bias during the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. Republican Senator Ron Johnson, who is chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, released the report, and it alleges then President Obama was keeping tabs on the agent's investigation. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reed joins us now from Washington to talk about all of this, because, Paula, this comes just 2 months after the Justice Department released 90 pages of texts between Strzok and Page. The report contains 4 times, though, as many messages. So are there truly any bombshells, as the president seems to see in this?
Well, there's no debating the fact that Strzok and Page did not care for then candidate, now President Trump. They described him as loathsome, as an idiot. In fact, in this new batch, they refer to the election as an instance where the fate of the world hangs in the balance, and that the world will certainly not be better off if President Trump is elected. But we knew that from the prior batches, too. They were very consistently critical of Trump and also of his supporters. But what was interesting and new in this batch were the words, the glowing praise that they had for former FBI Director Comey. In this batch, they called Comey's testimony before Congress brilliant. They said, quote, "He is so good." Now, Errol, I've read hundreds of pages of text between these two. They don't have a kind word for anyone. So the fact that they are actually praising the former FBI director, it's significant because it also undermines the White House's narrative that under Comey, the FBI was, quote, in tatters, and that many agents were complaining about the job that he was doing.
And it also backs up the polling that we've seen, that the rank and file inside the FBI have, for the most part, been behind Comey during his time there. Now, Senator Johnson points to a particular text from September of 2016, and he says this raises questions about President Obama's personal involvement in the Clinton email investigation. Do we even know what Page and Strzok were referring to there?
Yes, there is a text message from September 2nd that appears to reference briefing the president and the president wanting to know everything that they're up to. But Errol, context and timeline is important here. It is not clear that they're actually referring to the Clinton email investigation, because during that time on September 2nd, this was sort of a quiet period in the Clinton email investigation. It wasn't until about September 28th that they discovered the emails on Anthony Weiner's computer, and the whole investigation sort of revved up again. It is, however, possible that they were referring to the Russia probe, because just a few days later, the president confronted Vladimir Putin about Russia's meddling in the election. So it is very possible that they were discussing the Russia probe. You could also make the argument, though, perhaps it was the Clinton email investigation on that day. The FBI had issued a report about the Clinton email investigation, so it's possible that the president also wanted a briefing, but the context does not make it completely clear.
And I guess that's the important thing to keep in mind, is that the messages or points that people have a contentious kind of point to raise, it's important to identify in what context they were being used. The Russia probe you mentioned is mentioned quite often in these texts. Does the report shed any new light on the origins of that investigation?
I didn't find a lot of new information here. One thing that people might be interested in, there's been a lot of criticism about why the Obama administration wasn't as vocal about Russian meddling as they were about the Clinton email investigation. And in these text messages, they actually talk about an op-ed that the former FBI Director James Comey wanted to release about Russian meddling that the White House nixed. So I think that is one of the more significant details, but no real bombshells or huge revelations about the Russia investigation itself. However, these text messages, all the text messages between Strzok and Page, they continue to be used by people to try to undermine the credibility of the Russia investigation, of Robert Mueller's probe, pointing to the fact that 2 of the top investigators on this pretty small team were very anti-Trump. So these text messages, these will continue to be a problem for the FBI, the Justice Department, and Special Counsel Robert Mueller.
And all of it just really interesting to see and look into. My D.C. bureau buddy, Paula Reed, great to see you.